I have lived with disability every single day of my life. I experience that all kind of adversities, disabilities, failures, setback, hardships, or crisis tend to hold us back for a really long time. Our limitations may be medical, financial, professional, or personal in nature. All of those act as walls of limitations. Within those walls, we experience some losses which may make us feel less than others. But I learned it hard way that those losses could be our windows of opportunities, our X factors, or our differentiators over others if we leverage them correctly. When I was 6 months old, I contracted this planet's deadliest disease called polio. Most people infected with it would die. Even today, there is no cure for it. I survived somehow, but my one leg got paralyzed. I lost my ability to walk well before the age of walking. I was left to carry this permanent disability for life. First 20 years of my life were no less than a Homo sapien evolution. I evolved through crawling on the floor, lifting my leg with my hands, wearing prosthetics, using walking canes, and finally learning to walk painfully with crutches. As I grew up, I experienced post polio syndromes. That means my healthy organ would start becoming weaker while overcompensating for my lost limb. 45 years ago, in a remote area of India, there were no medical or other facilities. Born in extreme poverty, there was no future for a kid like me who could barely crawl on the floor. I even didn't have enough chance to go to a primary school. But I think I was blessed enough to come out strong. Today, I am a learning and performance scientist who get to guide people how to bring speed in their success. Now, you may wonder how a kid who could hardly walk became someone who teaches organizations and professionals how to walk faster in what they do. Today, I'm going to share two elementary but hugely important lessons from my journey. Number one, not all the walls that seem to limit you are real. You need to break the correct wall. Number two, you don't need to break all the walls because some have windows too. It turns out that psychologically, we humans respond to adversity or hardship in two distinct ways. We either feel like a victim or we feel like a fighter. Some of us respond to adversity or hardship like a victim. We feel helpless, limited, contained, constrained, or prisoned inside some kind of walls. We can't do what we really want to do. Some of us tend to accept it too soon, saying it's part of it. Some of us compromise, saying nothing can be done about it. Some of us tend to complain a lot about our misfortunes, asking, why me? Why me? When I reached the age to go to school, the only way possible was for me to wear the prosthetic braces on my leg. It had a lot of steel rods, leather straps, and a heavy boot at the bottom. Its weight was some 20 kg, probably more than my own weight at that age. I almost looked like a one-legged Autobot transformer. The only problem was I couldn't transform into one. It was such a unique piece of equipment that Kansas Museum of History display one of its kind in their collection. In those braces, I could hardly take one baby step at a time. So there was no way for me to match pace with my classmates. I was bullied, teased, made fun of, and more often left behind. There were moments when I had to drag that iron cast leg back home using the strength of my muscles. That 2 kilometers of distance from my school to home used to take me 2 hours all alone. That felt like a lifetime. The tears in my eyes were less because of physical pain, but more because of emotional pain. That cycle repeated in my life for many years. Every time I asked, why me? More I asked, more unpleasant answers I got from within me. Someone inside me told me, you are not good better than them. That was the victim side of me. But am I alone in this world who thinks that way? Many of us respond to adversity or hardship like a victim. And when we do so, we drag that heavy iron cast along. We feel not good enough. We feel left behind. But then there are other set of people who respond to adversity or hardship like a fighter. Darwin, evolution scientist, says we are that species who fought for millions of years for survival. That fight is in our blood. Centuries of wars have made us warriors who are ready to fight the moment we see a daunting wall ahead of us. I thought my physical disability was the wall that was preventing me from being accepted in that social circle. So I got myself into fighter mode and started fighting with that wall. I subjected myself to severe physical exercises, self-invented physiotherapy exercises, forcefully bending my leg, and all that in secret, hoping that someday I will get better at my disability to some extent. But more I tried, more my physical and emotional problem escalated to the point of breakdown. Why did human survival spirit, the grit, the willpower, fail in my case? Have you failed in your struggles despite your willpower? Psychologists tell us that when we are in the fight mode, we overlook several factors. We sort of go blind in this highly charged willpower mode where our pride kicks in. I must win this war. I can't fail. I must keep trying. I can't quit. When we are in that state, we don't even bother to see if we are indeed breaking the correct wall. We forget an important lesson from centuries of history and civilization. How could we win a war without knowing our opponent well enough? I failed because I did not understand my wall well enough. I thought my inability to walk was the culprit, so I started fighting with it. I was fighting with the wrong wall. My real walls were utterly unreal. Those were self limiting beliefs I made up in my mind. Those were victim stories I told myself over and over again that unless I walk like normal people, I won't be accepted. I won't be good enough. Anything else I do is not going to make any difference. Those were unreal, perceived, made up walls that were stopping me. I was doubly disabled, internally and externally. Several years later, when I recognized that, I broke the correct wall and I became someone with the largest friendship circle. I was often called as party maker. What a transformation, isn't it? Think about your moments. Do you have those unreal, perceived, made up walls that could be stopping you? Those are disabilities too. So, this is my lesson number one. Do we take enough time to understand if our walls are real or just made up in our mind? The war inside us won't stop until we ask this: are we really breaking the correct wall? Let me talk about my second lesson. Every time I was left behind, I made a pact with myself that if I can't walk with my legs, I will walk faster with something else. But the big question was how? One day, I realized that my disability gave me some gifts which I did not recognize earlier. No social interruptions, no spoiler friends, no mobility. That all gave me plenty of distraction free time at my disposal. That was an uncommon gift for a kid of that age. What could I do with that unique leverage? Contained in a room, glued to a chair with a very limited mobility, my best bet was to read from books and learn from them. I read every book I could find. I immersed myself in the world of learning. I remember that the first book I read was Dale Carnegie, while other kids were reading comics. Soon I mastered palmistry, poetry, physics, psychology, philosophy, and any other book I could afford to buy or borrow. Several of those books I read ahead of my age. I had this hunger to learn faster. And that's how I ended up with two doctorates, over 100 international and educational credentials, and some of world's highest certifications. After all, I found a way to walk faster than others. Several decades later, today I specialize in helping people to speed up their learning and performance and be faster in their life. How many times you have heard those motivational gurus telling you, break the wall, break the boundary, nothing can stop you. If I had followed those advices, I could have been struggling with my walls even today, and I would have ended up nowhere. Instead, I chose to see windows. When I saw my disability, my crisis, my limitation, my setback, I didn't see walls. I spotted windows among them, windows of opportunities, leverages, and advantages. And I leveraged everything my limitation offered me. I read science and engineering books ahead of my age. And that's how I became an engineer at the age of 21, even though I was ruled out because of my condition. And a year later, I became a technology scientist. Sitting inside my room, I had this luxury to engage in endless daydreaming and vivid imaginations. Nobody scolded me for that. Soon, the writer inside me rose up, and I wrote poetries, dramas, plays, articles, and many other things while other kids were probably having challenges writing an essay. While back, I could hardly afford to buy one book. Today, I am an author of 20 books. Tied to my chair, I had the same leverage as other kids, my healthy hands. So I leveraged these hands to get engaged in arts, painting, sketching, portraits, and other creative things. I was awarded as International Artist Award for the things I created back then. If you see, my disability wall didn't come my way. Probably it helped me go there faster. So that's second lesson today, that do we take enough time to understand our walls and spot the windows? Do we really have to go on a war with our walls all the time? Do we have to always break our walls or boundaries? Perhaps we should focus on windows of opportunities among those walls that could allow us to see beyond them. And if we change our perspective this way, we will be able to locate advantages in our adversities, leverages in our limitations, and desirability in disability. This crutch I walk with symbolically reminds me every moment of my life that I'm not enough. But that's okay, because my loss, my disability defines me who I was yesterday, who I am today, and who I am going to be tomorrow. We all experience losses which make us feel less. That's okay. But when we start chanting motivational slogan, I am enough, we are telling our mind that our glass is full. And our mind stops looking for possibilities. But when we feel that we are not enough and our glass is half empty, we become hungry to look for leverages, windows of opportunities among our limitations, our crises, our misfortunes, to fill it up somehow. That's when we create new possibilities for ourselves. We create new definition of ourselves. Today, let's all look at all the losses caused by our misfortunes, adversities, disabilities, failures, setbacks, and hardships, and think, how could we leverage those losses to go from being less than others to be a lesson for others? Thank you.